Okay, so what I want to talk about relates to your options towards attaining full combative efficiency. So one of those options relates to attacking the psychology of the subject that you're facing. The emotion of fear is inarguably one of man's most primitive emotions, and certainly one of the strongest, particularly when the focus of that fear is directed towards the possibility of losing one's life. So adrenaline, which is the natural biochemistry that is occurring in the body, which is what is most often misinterpreted for fear, will predictably alter or modify human physiology, as well as affect the mind on both a conscious and subconscious or innate level. The threat detecting organ in the brain is called the amygdala, and it serves as an early warning system that becomes the primary trigger for the release of the chemical cocktail that we know as adrenaline, which of course is the chemical cocktail of adrenaline, epinephrine and norepinephrine. Now often the amygdala will trigger fear via a very subtle cue that's not immediately obvious to the cognitive brain. Maybe the subconscious has picked up on something in the immediate environment first, and there's a trigger of adrenaline which you are not consciously aware of yet. Now, learning to use your natural bodily tools as weapons is only one part or half of the part of the equation to complete combative efficiency. We must also know the possible cause-effect that our hard skills may potentially have on human target anatomy, as well as the most viable targets that are likely to produce the most productive effect. It's important that you have an understanding of human anatomy, as well as the possible medical implications that your hard skills can have on human target anatomy, right from the minimal to what is most probable to what is absolutely sought in terms of disrupting your adversary's ability to fight. So understanding the possible medical implications of the what you do in a physical sense is essential knowledge in terms of combative efficiency. Remember, and make no mistake, disruption of a subject's consciousness is the most efficient way to dispatch anyone. The most efficient way to dispatch your adversary's ability to fight is to render him unconscious. If they are unconscious, they are fucking restrained, period. Other means are disrupting vision, disrupting breathing, disrupting mobility, but also disrupting the will to continue. So it's not always necessary or ethical, let's say, to render somebody unconscious. There are always going to be times where an alternative method should be sought, and that's not necessarily physical. So what I'm talking about here is attacking their will to continue, or is an attack on your adversary's psychology. So it's important that you understand targets on human anatomy that will give us a psychological advantage over the said adversary by attacking their psyche or attacking their psychology directly. This will in turn reliably neutralize him also in a physical sense. So here we are talking about attacking a target that will produce both a biological and a psychological effect. So imagine taking a subject in a way that is in your complete control, that immediately places his mental state into a state of self-preservation. So he's no longer immediately combative. What he's concerned about is the fact that he could lose his life now. So you are implementing a skill set that could indicate that you could take his life. And then you are choosing to turn down the severity of your use of that skill set to make it less serious in nature in order to get him to do what you want to do. In other words, your immediate action suggests lethal force, but now you can work backward by degree of action. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one would be a head manipulation or a head control. So we know in combatives this skill as the chin rip. So if I was to immediately put you in a position where I could chin rip you, I take you chest to back, so your back is now to my chest, and I manipulate your head structure whilst holding your arm to a position where I've turned your head to the full extent it's capable of turning. And I've done this in a ballistic manipulating sense, where you are suddenly found yourself in a position where your neck can no longer turn. but I'm in complete control as to whether I want to release you or break your fucking neck or go further. So you are in a compromised position where your immediate thought is self-preservation and the possibility that you could have your neck broken or that you could lose your life. I'm inducing that attack on your psychology, which is immediately making you respond in a compliant way should I suggest that you just turn it in and now I'll let you go. So in other words, my initial action suggests lethal force, but now I'm in a position of control to work backward from lethal to a lesser degree use of force, as long as I get the compliance that I want from you. Another example of this would be to put you into a choke or a strangle. So if I pop your shoulders and put you into a rear naked choke, and initially put it on tight so you feel yourself losing consciousness, and then I release it. So now you're gasping for air, or just absolutely relieved that blood flow has returned to your brain. You will quickly realize that in that moment, I put you in a compromised position where I could choke you out, strangle you out, or just take your life if I chose to. Right? That's going to make the majority of people, as long as you're not psychopathic, pause momentarily. So the objective here is I put you in immediate fear for your life. And then I release the motion, which gives you a sense of relief. And that's where my suggestion for you to calm the fuck down would come in. And there's a high probability that you will now comply. Well, in the two examples of where I put you in a chin rip, I put your neck in a compromised position, but I've not cranked your neck. I've not hurt you in any way. I've maintained control. And I can tell you, I'll break your fucking neck unless you calm the fuck down. Are you going to calm the fuck down? To which you should reply, yes, okay, whatever. And then I release you and push you away. Now, if you get combative again, I'm going to drop you, as simple as that. But I've made the suggestion after putting you in a compromised position where you had the genuine fear that you were going to lose your life. And then I've given you the relief that I will let you go if you turn it in. And the same can be applied to a choke. I'm practically strangling you till you are unconscious, recognizing that consciousness is leaving your body. And then I release it before you are unconscious and tell you that I suggest you fucking calm down, because if you don't, I'm going to put you to sleep, or I'm going to break your fucking neck, or I'm going to injure. A final example might be if I'm in a high threat situation, such as multiple assailants, and I put you in a chest to back position, and I put something sharp and pointy to the side of your neck. And I'm taking you hostage in effect, and I'm telling your friends to back the fuck up. Now let's say that one of your friends is armed. I will tell you to tell your fucking friend to drop his fucking weapon. If you don't, I'm going to put this right through your neck. And I might stick it into you so it's extremely uncomfortable without breaking skin or drawing blood. But in that moment, you will believe that I will take your life. I'm putting you in fear for your life in order to make you comply. And I'm giving you an alternative that lets you know I will let you go if you fucking turn it in and back away from me. Now, in theory, you could edge your way to the door, shove this person into the other person, and turn and take off and run. And nobody's been hurt. He might have a red mark on his neck, but you've not even drawn blood. So I've put the subject into a position where I've made him fear for his life. And then I've given him the relief of letting him think I will let him live if he complies. If he is no longer problematic and no longer proven to be a threat. This is an attack on psychology. We are more likely to affect the subject psychologically as well as biologically if we bring to their attention the possibility of their immediate demise. Because you are now playing with his fear of death. Now, of course, I may have absolutely no intention whatsoever to implement lethal force in this moment. I don't want that on my conscience, and I don't want to do anything like that unless I have to do that out of an act of sheer fucking desperation. But the person I've got in this compromised position doesn't fucking know that. All he knows is that I could end his life if I choose. But I'm also going to let him know that I will let him live and let him go if he stops being a threat. So you raise the anxiety level and then you relieve it, as I've just discussed in the three previous examples. So in effect, you are targeting the psychology of the subject or the enemy that thinks that he's going to die. Now, the anxiety of death is often extremely different to the possibility of death. Just because I take his head to full rotation doesn't mean I'm going to break his neck. Just because I put him in a choke position where I could strangle him to death doesn't mean I'm going to strangle him to death or even choke him out. Just because I put a blade to his neck or something pointy to his neck or threaten to drive this fucking point-driven instrument through his eardrum and into his brain doesn't mean I'm going to do it. All I need to do is induce the fear that I will do it in order to gain compliance. This is how we get an attack on the psychology. And this can be extremely fucking useful. So you should know it. I am simply playing with his fear of lethal consequence in order to get the outcome that I want. I'm attacking his psyche in order to weaken his previously combative attitude. I am now dissuading his attitude. So think about it as I have a metaphorical gun in my hand with my finger off the trigger, which allows me to be in complete control. I could, if I chose, to place a strategic bullet that won't kill but will stop the subject. So in the example of the choke, I could choke him unconscious, then as soon as I feel the slumping body weight, I could release it, put him down into the recovery position. Conversely, I could escalate the force if I wanted to with the same metaphorical gun by employing a double tap to the chest and the head, thereby ending him completely. So in the example of the chin rip, I could break his fucking neck. In the example of the choke or the strangle, I could strangle him and keep it on until he's dead. In the example of taking him as a hostage, I could put it into his neck and open him up very quickly. This is the suggestion. I am suggesting the consequence. I am playing with his fear of death in order to manipulate and dissuade his attitude from previously combative to compliant. In short, any method employed that will play with the subject's fear of demise, be it through inhibiting his breathing or putting him into a compromised position, will be effective. Now, on a lesser scale, this can also work if I banalistically manipulate the subject's joint or a limb or a small joint. So as an example, if he was pointing his finger in my face being extremely aggressive and I grabbed the finger and I yanked it down now using small joint manipulation, and I've given him instantaneous pain to the point where he's going to feel his bone snap. Well, at this point, if I told him to stop fucking about, from a pain compliance point of view, as long as I induced enough pain, I could get him to dissuade his attitude. This is what pain control and restraint through pain compliance idea is all about. But the thing to understand is that people have very differing degrees of pain compliance. I can put somebody in a position where I wrench their arm and put them into shock, or I can put them into a position where I have to break their arm and they're still fighting back. So using pain to get the compliance I want is not necessarily foolproof, reliable at all. So using pain compliance, even immediate ballistic manipulation to a joint such as the elbow, the wrist, the hand or anything else, these things can fucking hurt and are extremely painful, but depending on the subject's pain tolerance level. So pain tolerance levels can be affected by a number of reasons: pharmaceutical assistance, intoxication, person is sadistic and sardonic and just loves pain, person's full of adrenaline or raging angry and now is anesthetized somewhat to pain, person may have deep underlying receptor sites due to body type so they don't feel pain like anybody else. Don't expect putting somebody into a position of immediate pain through ballistic manipulation to apply the same attack on the psychology. The person could indeed give up or could keep fighting until you're forced to do something else. So I don't like this idea applied to pain compliance via control and restraint through ballistic manipulation. But I do like this idea applied to a direct attack on the psyche, where you put the subject in an immediate compromised position where all they are thinking about now is the possible consequences of their demise. And the best way to do that is to take a head manipulation, put him in a choke or strangulation, or put something sharp and pointy to the neck, taking him in a compromised position as a hostage. These are just 3 examples. I'm sure there's many more. But in all 3 examples, the objective will be to get the result that I want, i.e. a dissuasion and attitude, without having to implement any physical force at all.